we now have a new column in the output called total price. And I want to show you how this looks. If you've watched the previous videos in this chapter on how to create fake destinations, then you create a variable, my variable, of a data type int32, and you drag a row count transform, and you simply take the output and configure your row count to store the results into your new variable. And then you add in a data viewer. Just click add, and the grid is fine, and OK and OK. And then you just execute it. And you'll now see that the results of the output is the multiplication. So here are the first 5 columns are direct from Excel, and then these columns are the derived column. That is 99.98 times 5 in a currency format. Sweet. Okay, so you know that you've added that in here. Okay. And we're not done, right? We need to do an aggregate. So let's dump out our row count, and let's now aggregate. Come out of the derived column because we need to aggregate the results of the derived column. So come down into it. Say, what is it we want? We want to take the customer ID and group by. So we want one row per group, one row per customer ID, each unique customer ID. And then we wanted to know how many different products they had ordered, right? So we take the product ID and we want to count the distinct. Now, let's take the total price column. This is our derived column. So we take the total price column, and now we want to sum. Very cool. There's a little bit more advanced over here. You can see your group by columns. You have this idea of keys. And the keys in our aggregations basically say, if I said low, it says that I'm expecting, from a performance standpoint, to deal with about 500,000 unique keys. Okay, so SQL Server uses this for caching and for optimizations. If I said medium, it's between 500,000 and a million, and high is larger than a million unique keys. So I'm going to specify unspecified because I have 3. It doesn't matter. Okay. Now, when we come out of the aggregate, by the way, we have these columns here. Customer ID, ag, product ID is, let's say, different products, and total price is sum of total price. So the input column that you see right here in the aggregate transformation, the input column is the columns that the derived column, or that come out of the derived column transform. The output alias columns that you see here, right, are the columns that get exposed down here. Okay. Sweet. Well, let's do the same thing. Let's take our row count, drag and drop. Let's double click and assign that to my variable. Again, we don't really use the row count except for a dummy. And let's now grab a data viewer, add it in, OK, OK. And let's see the results of our aggregation now. Okay, our data viewer says that customer ID has purchased 3 different products for a total of 248. Customer 2 has bought 2 products for a total of 569.8. Very cool. Okay, now, final step is actually going to surprise you. You think you know the final step. So let's rip our row count out. And what's your final step, right? Well, let's load it into SQL Server. Sweet. Drag the ags, come down to SQL Server. Let's make a new connection manager. Choose your database. Mine was on the local host. Did learnitfirst.com was the database. And we use our table aggregations, which, just to remind you, had those 3 columns: customer ID, total sales, total different products. Mappings, we got to map them correctly here. Well, it looks like it didn't come out right. So hold on, it looks like, and I noticed this on the data viewer, that the output of the aggregation kept the old names. So let's go back to the aggregate here. Yep, you see it didn't change the output. I bet I hit cancel or something, just chattering. Call it different products and sum of total price. Come back over here now, aggregations, mappings, there you go. You see them now. So sum of total price matched to the total sales, different products. Are you ready? Oh, red. You see you've got data type issues here. The customer ID column says that it is R8 in Excel, but it's going to I4 in SQL Server. Boo. That means you've got to deal with data type conversion. You remember from an earlier video how you can view these warnings? You go to view and you tell it you want to actually look in the output here. So we can go to the error list here and see the output of the errors. So the column customer ID, R8 and I4. Okay, UI4 and I4 for the column different products. Okay, got to do some data type conversion here. Couple of different ways that we can do it. One, the easy way, let's dump out our destination. Not necessarily the best performing way, but the easy way would be to go to the transformation and just drag in the data conversion. Just drag it right here. Say, hey, I want to make the column customer ID become the customer ID I4 column, and the data type is, where's my I4? Did I pass it? Right here, a 4-byte signed integer. And then I want the different products to be different products I4. Instead of an unsigned I4, I want it to be a signed I4. So I could do that here, and then I'm easily able to come in and drag my SQL Server destination, choose everything, and I'm running out of space here. I guess I'll bring it over here. Choose the aggregations table, do my mappings. Notice that the new columns are brought into the output. These columns were added by the data conversion transformation. So what did we have to have? The input column was the customer ID I4. Total sales didn't change, but we need the different products I4. Okay. Our red goes away. I hit F5, and we're able to load the data successfully. And if we go to SQL Server and run the select, sure enough, it loaded successfully. Okay. There are other ways to do that same thing. I'll go ahead and delete that table just to show you. You are going to have to change this column after the aggregate. So the different products, the count distinct, brings back a UI, oh gosh, sorry, my bad. It brings back a UI4. Now, if you're going to load that into SQL Server, you've got to convert that. It's got to be an I4 for an int data type. So there's no getting around using the data conversion transformation after this. However, we can go through the data conversion. We can take out the customer ID column. Just get rid of him altogether, which breaks our SQL Server destination, but that's okay because we can go to the advanced editor in Excel and we can say that the output of the customer ID column is not a float. It's not R8, that this is actually an I4. So we have gone to the advanced editor. We right click on the advanced or on the source, go to the advanced editor, go to the output column of customer ID, and we change the data type. Now that needs to be reflected in now our aggregate, because our aggregate is going to be considered now different. So the customer ID over here, we've got to change that. We can't do it here. All we have to do is simply move on and move off of it, and it comes back okay. Now, Back over here, change our destination, tell it to map using column name, and let's actually delete those and say OK and come back in. And now customer ID. Or I could have dragged and dropped. You see now we lost that customer ID I4, and it works just the same. So you could have done it two ways. However, you still have to do this data conversion after the aggregate if you're going to load to an int column. And so sure enough, it loaded.